Dear students, welcome to the class of International Politics. Today, in this session, I will try to summarize the main points in Chapter 2, International Politics and International Organizations. Before we start, let's have a look at the learning outcomes. By the end of this chapter, you will define the concept of international organization, comprehend the roles, functions and types of international organizations, understand the historical roots of international organizations, grasp theoretical approaches to international organizations. So let's start with the definition of international organization. International organization can be defined as a formal, continuous structure established by agreement between members from two or more sovereign states with the aim of pursuing the common interests of the membership. An entity can be classified as an international organization if it carries three main characteristics. These are membership, aim, and structure. In terms of membership, an international organization should draw its membership from two or more sovereign states. With regard to aim, an international organization should be established to pursue common interests of the members rather than pursuing the interests of only one member. And finally, an international organization should have its own formal structure of a continuous nature, which is established by an agreement such as a treaty or constituent document, is separate from the continued control of one member. International organization generally plays three major roles in international politics: instrument, arena, and actor. In terms of instrument, international organizations are generally being used as an instrument by its members for particular ends. And international organizations provide arenas or forums where members to come together to discuss, argue, cooperate, and disagree. For example, third world countries use the United Nations and its agencies as an arena to express their views on the subject of a new international economic order during the 1970s. And the third role attributed to the international organization in international politics is that of independent actor. Here, actorness refers to the capacity of an organization to act independently from its constituent member states and also ability to affect the course of world events. Here, we need to mention that these three roles are not mutually exclusive. An international organization in different times and settings can play all three roles. As for the functions of international organizations, as you can see, they have many different functions. Here, I won't explain each function in detail, but let's have a look at some of them. For example, international organizations can act as instruments for interest articulation and aggregation, or they can be forums in which those interests are articulated. And secondly, international organizations have made a considerable contribution to the normative activities of the international political system through creating norms, values, and norms of behavior and establishing them worldwide. And international organizations undertake a number of operational functions, including resource allocation, provision of technical aid, force deployment, etc. And this is an example to operations. For example, the World Bank provides financial support to development projects. International organizations can be classified under three main categories, and they are defined by sovereignty, membership, and aims. According to the sovereignty criteria, International organizations are classified according to whether member states delegate all or some of their sovereign rights to an international organization or not. And these organizations are classified as traditional international organizations and supranational organizations. And here, to traditional international organizations, United Nations, NATO, World Trade Organization can be given as examples, and partially the European Union can be given as an example to the supranational organizations. And the first distinction between the types of international organizations based on membership is those which are interstate or intergovernmental and those whose membership is non-governmental. For the first distinction, United Nations and NATO can be given, and to non-governmental organizations, Greenpeace and Amnesty International are good examples. And another distinction between the types of international organizations based on membership is related with geographical origins of the member states. This distinction is made between regional organizations and global or universal organizations. So, if an international organization is composed of a limited number of members, and if they are seen to be geographically proximate or culturally, economically, and politically similar, they are called regional organizations. However, if the membership of an organization is not limited to a particular region and open to all eligible sovereign states in the world, it is considered as global or universal organization. In terms of aims and activities, international organizations are classified according to what they are supposed to do and what they actually do. If an organization has general aims and carries out a wide range of activities, it is considered as international organization with general aims and activities. On the other hand, if an organization is established with a specific aim and to carry out activities in a specific field such as politics, economics, trade, culture, security, it is considered as an international organization having specific aims and activities. Now let's look at the historical roots of international organizations. International organizations in modern terms emerged in the 19th century when 4 preconditions were met. And let's have a look at those conditions. The first one is the existence of a number of states functioning as independent political units, the existence of a substantial measure of contact between these states, an awareness of problems that arise from states' coexistence, and the state's recognition of the need for creation of institutional devices and systematic methods for regulating these relations with each other. Here, we should say that the first precondition, which is the existence of a relatively stable system of sovereign states, had been met in Europe before the 19th century. However, other three preconditions were attained in the 19th century. For the precedents of modern international organizations, the Concert of Europe and the Hague Peace Conferences can be given. And in the Concert of Europe, special rights and responsibilities to the great powers were asserted. And the Hague Peace Conferences of 1899 and 1907 were huge steps towards the codification of international norms on peace and security, and some of its features were adopted by international organizations that were formed later. And economic and social development in the 19th century increased states' awareness of problems that arise from their coexistence and their need for creation of institutional devices and systematic methods for regulating their relations with each other. and this laid the ground for further international cooperation in the form of public international unions or international agencies. And for public international unions, which were established as a response to economic social development in the 19th century, we can say that they had been models and precursors of the later international organizations. Now let's have a look at the theoretical approaches to international organizations. Actually here we can classify them as, under two main categories. The first one is traditional approaches to international organizations, and they are all state-centric approaches. And as for the second one, they are the revisionist approaches to international organizations, and functionalism, neo-functionalism, and transactionalism can be given example to revisionist approaches to international organizations. And these approaches examine international organizations as significant actors beside states. Now, let's have a look at them in a more detailed way. Let's start with realism. Actually, they grant a marginal role to the international organizations, and then they claim that states are principal international actors, and international organizations only matters if they serve interests of states. And they also emphasize the difficulty of international cooperation due to conditions imposed on states by anarchic international system and states' preoccupation with relative gains. As for liberalism, we can say that they claim that states may be more concerned about making absolute gains. States' main concern is to maximize its absolute gains through cooperation, and international institutions and regimes can play a significant role in facilitating interstate cooperation by mitigating the effects of anarchy. The main objective of functionalist theory was to produce ideas for the creation of a working peace system, and they say that there is a need to establish international functional organizations, and the creation of international functional organizations leads to the creation of an interdependent world and greater interdependence in the form of transnational ties between countries to create a peaceful world society. Neo-functionalism emerged in order to explain newly emerging European integration process in the 1950s, and in order to explain regional integration, neo-functionalists have used the concept of spillover. There are two main forms of spillover. They are functional and political. And functional spillover refers to the process in which integration in a given economic sector creates functional linkage pressures for the integration of other related economic sectors. And political spillover refers to a process in which beneficiaries of supranational integration support further integration in other related sectors in order to benefit from the same advantages. And transactionalist approach was developed by Karl Dodge as a remedy to interstate conflict and war. And they focused on the establishment of security communities within which the expectation of war was minimized. Dear students, so far in this chapter, we defined the international organization. We also looked at the roles, functions, and types of international organization. We talked about the historical roots of international organizations, and finally, we also talked about the theoretical approaches to international organizations. That's all for today. See you next chapter.